Hey guys, welcome back to the Casual Athlete. I'm here for my team reveal pre-Vegas. I've got the Casual Athlete himself here to help me work on my team. It's getting feedback from a god of NRL Fantasy, the king himself. Thanks for joining me, Longy. Appreciate your time.
Mate,
We've done
I've
your
never been
team
called God
reveal.
before. That's that's
Mate,
outrageous.
the people are just really, they're probably just copying your team reveal already. So let's see if they can take any notes from mine. But look, I'll run through my strategy this year. And look, for the people who've been following this channel and watching my videos, you all know that I love the guns and cows approach. This year, it is full of cows, very risky, a lot of them. But I just think that, I always, just like Longy, I play for the top 10, top 20, top 30 finishes, and I play risky. Like as you can already see on this team, there's a lot of base price cows. They could all go terribly, and I don't do too well. Last year, I didn't have a great start. Finisher in the top 1,000 wasn't my best year, but the year before, similar strategy, got off to a hot start, was in the top 15 after 5 to 10 rounds. And that's kind of the hot start I'm going for, really stacking my squad full of guns that I know will score me a lot of points and praying that these cows work out, can give me 30, 35 points, really maximizing scoring week to week at the start of the season. So I'll quickly run through my team before I'll throw over to Longy to ask questions and kind of conduct a bit of interview or just critique some of these selections, because I know we have quite a few differences. First up at my hooker position, pretty simple one, Peter Mamazales. Look, you have to have him in your team. I'm not going to go too much further into him. Connor Watson, I think, is very common. Terrell May is very common. Isaiah Yeo, I know he's not in Longy's side at the moment, and it's not a great pick in terms of excitement. It's a 65-point player who's priced at 65, probably not going to go up too much in price, probably not going to go down too much in price. But when you're going for so many cows that are unstable, you want someone that you can bank points on. And I know what I'm getting with Yo. Unless he's injured, he's going to score me 65 points. So very low risk pick. Not the most exciting, but I think my team is risky enough without him. Now, you'll see my edges. I've gone very differently to most people, and I've gone very differently to what I said a few weeks ago in the preseason. I think I said there's a lot of good mid-range options. We talked about Papali. He got benched. We talked about Bateman. Looked pretty pedestrian in the trial game, played about 60 minutes for about 26 points, didn't pass the eye test, didn't look the Bateman of old, looked like the Bateman of 2024. And then Hosking, I know Longy you're on him. I just don't see the path to 80 minutes. I think with the calf strain and him racing the clock just to be fit for round one, Sagi on the bench, I think it's a split between Hosking and Sasagi, just like Whitehead and Sasagi to end last year. So I'm expecting 50 to 60 minutes, not enough for me. So I'm personally going Hopgood and Preston. Now I'll walk through these choices. First, I'll go Preston. I know he's kind of getting a bit of hype train, had a huge score in the trial, predominantly off of like a brilliant solo try where he kind of ran the ball out of dummy half, beat like 6 players himself and scored a try. Was getting frustrated towards the back end of the game and just decided to take it into his own hands. Priced at 52. Average of 57 last year when playing 70 plus minutes in the edge. Scored 57 points in his lone finals game last year. 1 year more experience, 1 year closer to being an elite edge. Bulldogs should be good. No more Jamin Salmon, hopefully, to contend with. Like the starter Jamin Salmon and bench star Preston. So I'm high on Preston this year. Just not loving the value options here. Like Longy, don't love Kelmar. Don't love Finifuaki. Like a lot of these options, I'm just not sold on, especially when I'm taking so much risk with the 250k players. Then Jermaine Hopgood, he played the full 40 minutes in the first half against the Tigers, didn't play the second half. Great to see some air in his lungs, get some, run through. 34 points in 40 minutes. Riles has come out and said that he wants a very mobile, exciting attacking pack. Hopgood is that to a T. He's a smaller forward who has a big motor and is very mobile with a lot of ball skills. I think we've seen that Hopgood is one of the guys that can average 60 plus. There's very few players in that category. Dual position, pod ownership in my team in terms of my real life beloved Parramatta Eels. So had to have him. Look, if I see a 3 forward bench, he's locked in. If it's a 4 forward bench with how many people Para have there, might fall off him, but right now he's locked into my side. You've seen I don't have great middle depth, so that dual position is very handy, especially if Watson goes into my hooker spot. I have the option to move Hopwood to middle, give me some viability that if I do want to get some of those value edge players like Kelma in week 2 after Vegas, I can still do that. Halves, won't talk about Cleary and Metcalf. A lot of people are going that path. Talk about my centers for a bit. I know I was huge on Dylan Lucas, but gone really cheap here. Jack Bird, Robert Toya. Look, I don't love my centers whatsoever, but I've got Toya, Bird, and you'll see on my bench, I have Stafford, Toa, Jackson, Purdue. Just too many centers this year, and I want a bit of exposure to all of them because of the upside they present. I think all of them have scoring potential. And if I wanted to add a player, it would be Dylan Lucas, but I didn't want 5 centers. It just didn't fit my team balance. So that kind of leads me to my back 3, where I've got Ruben Garrick there. He was my last pick to fulfill this team. I'm still considering whether I think Tamale gets a spot over Hopewade, in which case I might have Tamale and use Garrick's money elsewhere. But, in terms of my back 3, Iongi's a lock for every team. Ponga looked amazing on the weekend, looks as fit as ever, looks healthy. The Knights look good. The Knights look like they're in mid-season form. Garrick, I think he is priced at 43, averaged 49 when playing 70-plus minutes last year. So not a lot of value, but 6 points of value is still decent. I don't think there's a lot of great fullback options. I think Walsh and Tommy Turbo and Teddy, Dylan Edwards, they're all kind of priced at their peak. Drinkwater has a bit of value if he gets the goals, but with Duffy getting the spot, potentially he won't get that. So I've gone for a bit of value in a mid-range position, Garrick, and he gives me some center coverage in case all my centers bust, which they very much well could do so. There's a high chance of that. I know it. A lot of people are looking at these centers and probably thinking, what are you doing, dude? Haven't you learned your lesson of the last few years where the cheap centers never work out? I'm sorry, but I'm going to run the risk. Going to my bench, look, pretty straightforward bench. Alex Seyfarth, 51 average when playing second row. I think Tigers have just extended him. Bateman and Papali'i gone. It'll be Samuel Ofainu and Seyfarth on the edge. I think Ruben Porter's really his only kind of competition. Jack Bird's been training in the middle, so I don't think he's going to play on the edge. I think Seyfarth is locked in for 60, 70, 80 minutes for a 50-odd average, priced in the mid-30s. I love the value there. Cole, easy one. Duffy, easy one. Brimson, 47 average playing in 6 over the last few years. A lower average back in 2018, 2019, but I'd like to think AJ Brimson as a player has evolved a lot since his rookie years. I think in the trial, they looked very good, 69 points with 2 tries. What I like to see was an equal kick share with Jaden Campbell. We got about 250 kick meters. So when I looked at AJ Brimson's statistics, that 46, 47 average was based on 100 kick meters. If it goes up to 250, I think he can kind of breach into the 500 mark. The 50 average mark. And look, loophole option week 1. As you can see, he's plugged into my 4th spot. So what will happen here is if Sandon Smith has a good game, I can, flip him out and use the loophole coverage. So it gives me some flexibility. I think the difference between us, Longy, is I've gone Ponga and Brimson, whereas you've gone Marzu and Jaden Campbell, which are kind of like a mid-ranger plus a gun. Flip the teams. Sandon Smith, Stafford Toa, Jackson Purdue, Owen Paddy. Look, I won't talk about Sandon Smith. I'll talk about Stafford Toa briefly. We've talked about him at length, but center that potentially should take the spot for Justin Olam's medical retirement and Brent Naden's injury. Jackson Purdue, just backing the talent, like guys who, look, I don't really know too much of Jackson Purdue, but he seems a guy who'll probably average between 20 and 25, but I'm hoping that he can have a boom game early in the season with a couple of tries for 45, 50, just to get the price moving, make a lot of cash early, move off him when he peaks pretty quickly. And very similar strategy to Owen Paddy. I'm not expecting minutes from Owen Paddy. We covered him at length in the cash cow video. 32 minutes in Reggie's for about a 29 average. If he gets 30 minutes for 25 to 30, he's worth the 10 points in value. I think his role will increase as the season goes on. I don't think they've shown a lot of faith for Starling and Levi. Starling doesn't even have a contract for next year. I think Paddy is the hooker of the future, and they'll give him minutes if he can handle the minutes and just backing the talent over time. So rush through that really quickly because a lot of these players people are familiar with. built my if you probably look at this team and you're thinking this could go very badly, but I'm hoping that I'm hedging bets here and there, and if all goes to plan, it's going to score very quickly and make a lot of money quickly. But I know it's not the strategy for everyone. It doesn't work every year. Not many strategies work every year, but I'm backing it again more often than not. This has led me to a lot of good finishes.
It's a good side, man. I'm going to open with 2 observations. And look, thanks for running us through that. It's always good to hear the logic behind some of these guys. First thing I'm going to point out is that you've gone with some very high upside pods. So Jacob Preston, as much as he gets a bit of chat, he is a pod. And that dummy half run he took 70 meters, that really showcases his attacking upside. Jermaine Hopgood, he still has that little injury marker, even though he played the trial. He's not injured anymore. He's fine. But he's a real pod as well. And dual position guy who has pumped out a low 60s average in the past and will have the license to kill this year. Massive upside there. What I want to call out is this is a pretty textbook example of a guns and cows strategy. So you've got in the base price, let's run through them. Owen Paddy, Jackson Purdue, Stafford Toa, Sandon Smith, Tom Duffy, Jack Cole, Robert Toya. You can make a case that, Yongi's pretty cheap as well. So there's a lot of cheap guys there.
Yep, a lot of cheap. It's Metcalf, a lot of cheapies. Well, Metcalf is kind of going to mid-range territory, but Mamazoulis as well. So
it's stacked, but it frees you up to make moves that others can't make. So Connor Watson, Isaiah Yo, Terrell May, that could be 200 points a week out of that section. The back row, Hopgood and Preston, they both have 100 in them, right? Was that an intentional strategy to go guns and cows? Because I know you've done it in the past, and last year was rough for it. Last year was a mid-ranger year, but previous years before that, it's led to some very good finishes for you.
Yeah, look, I think when I put together this team, the way I generally see it is which players have the most upside over what they're priced at. And it's generally usually the 250 price guys because they're priced at 19 and they only really need to average 30 to be 11 points of value. And I didn't pick all of them. Like, for example, Garseki, Corey Pakes, and some of the other guys. Tamale is not in my team at the moment. I didn't I would like to pick all of them, but I've just kind of gone the ones that I think have higher potential. Like for example, guys like Jack Kazewski, base price, even if he gets 80 minutes on the edge for a few weeks, which is not going to happen, like say with Pure Cora there, 35. Like at the very best, it's 35. But I look at some of the guys I've picked here, and Jack Cole ran a 45 average with the Panthers when he was playing at 6 last year. Duffy, 50-odd average in reserves, pumped out a 50 last week. Sandon Smith has shown he can score 40-plus, goal kicking, pretty reliable in terms of the job security. They don't really have too many players that can be there. Like you said in another video, Joey Manu can no longer fill in at 6. Connor Watson's needed at hooker, so he can't play in the halves. Don't really have options. Stafford Toa has scored 100 against Val Holmes in the past. He's a kind of guy that's not very reliable in terms of he can go 10 points, but he can also score 60 points. And if you score 60 when you're 250K, you make like 60K within a week. And you can move him pretty quickly to another guy. And then Owen Paddy is just 230K, a guy who has tremendous upside, has been really good in the preseason, could just do nothing all year. But 230K, I agree that he's hard to move if he fails. But pod ownership, backing the talent. Look, I'm backing the strategy this year. I just think there was too many. It's hard for me to move on from any of these guys. If I had cash in the bank, I'm backing at least 60, 70, 80% of these cows to hit. They don't all have to hit, right? They're not always going to hit. You can never have a 100% hit rate with the cows, but these are the ones I'm more confident than not that have enough upside to justify the risk.
I'll drop a light critique and a question on this next point here. So you have AJ Brimson, which is fantastic, gives you flexibility with the loophole. He's going to be half and wing fullback by the time, the season sort of rolls around. Probably not round 1, but after that. You're not really leveraging that loophole for wing fullback. So your wing fullbacks are all really solid. Yongi plays the last game of the round, so you can't loophole him. Then you've got Ponga and Ruben Garrick. And they're both pretty reliable guys, so you don't need to loophole them.
Yeah.
Right? So I sort of look at that and I go, right, there's probably a bit of a waste there. And what would solve that would be Tamale, who we've talked about. He's an absolute beast. You could put him in that sort of emergency 5 spot there instead of Sandon Smith. and have him as a loophole. And then if he's great, you move Brimson into the starting side and you don't have to worry about Ruben Garrick.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I see
Yeah.
this team. But I'm open to thoughts on why you haven't gone for Tamale as well,
No,
because not opening cover chart.
Look, I'm really happy you asked that question because the minutes leading into this, I had exactly that set up for that exact reason. The only reason I came off that is that I had a couple of $100,000 sitting around that I wasn't fully sure how to spend it yet. And the thing with Tamale is that he's locked this week. So he does give you the loophole option, but it's a spot that's locked up a week before everyone else comes out in team lists. So look, I think there's a high chance I end up with Tamale, just based on the attacking upside, the fact that he's next man in for that Raiders back five, just all the attacking upside in terms of, and then Albert Hopwhite not really nailing the spot down. I know Ricky loves him, but I think and the dual position at 300K, I think he works his way into my team. And the way I see it happening is Garrick's gone, Tamale's in, and I use that money elsewhere. The problem is I don't really know where I'd use that money elsewhere right now. Like I'm pretty happy with my set of cows. And then my mid-ranges in terms of Metcalf, Seyfarth, I kind of like those guys. Like I'm not really moving off them. I think they're very underpriced. Metcalf, I'm kind of leaning off on slowly just because I think Chanel Harris-Tavita has shown that he can be a dominant kicker. In the games at 5'8" last year, he kind of averaged 350, 400 kick meters. But if you just add goals and a bit of kicking to Metcalf's score last year, that's already 10 points of value. So that is essentially the logic why I've done that. I agree that Tamale is actually a very good fit for this team in terms of the structure. Just need to figure out a better use of that 300K from downgrading Garrick to him.
Okay. And then are there any players that you're really feeling bad about missing out on? So not Tamale, but anyone else that you're thinking, oh, I wish I could work that guy into my team, but I just can't?
Honestly, Dylan Lucas. I think, I love the big minute, edge guys who play in the centers. I think love Lucas. I'm sad at not having Fafita in my team. I think I would have had Fafita in my team over Preston if I didn't have Brimson already. So if Brimson theoretically becomes Tamale, and I know it's not solving the problem you just suggested, but if I lose it, I don't want to have two Titans in my squad missing round one, just in case, like, Fafita gets named on the bench week 2 or something, or Brimson plays in center or whatever, or there's a good injury at training. So I think Fafita is the one I'd love to have as a pod. And then just like you, I would have loved to run an extra hooker like a Harry Grant or a Damien Cook, but it couldn't do it. But I think overall, I have really thought carefully about the cows I want to get, I want to avoid, and the guns I want to move into. And at this stage, pretty happy with this team, bar maybe the last 2 or 3 selections.
Are you worried at all about, because I'm looking at these cheapies, half, center, and then, bench hooker, then more centers in the starting side. So the cheapies are very focused on those positions. If team lists come out and we can force a few guys in, like I don't know who I'm going to point out here, but certain guys pop up at different positions and we can cram them in. Would you get a player who is of lower quality than one of these guys just to have the positional coverage, or are you going to stick with the top cash cows and not worry about positional coverage?
That's a great question, and it's one I ponder all the time. That am I better off taking the best player available, or going for squad balance? And I think with cashies, I would rather take the best player available because cashies is just inherently so risky most of the time, right? I'm not going to sacrifice. Like I'm not going to drop a Stafford, or let's say I'm not going to drop a Tom Duffy for a Jack Kasevsky or a Corey Pakes type. Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not going to do the squad balance just for the sake of the squad balance. Like you do have trades during the year, and I don't go into my season thinking I'm going to have to trade this player out because he gets injured. Like, to be frank, to win the league, to even finish top 10, top 20, top 100, you need luck to go your way. And if your good players are getting injured week in, week out, where you'll need all that depth, then you're probably going to struggle to win anyway. I don't know if you disagree with that, but like I'm not going in there thinking I'm going to need cover for Hopgood week 2 because he could get re-injured. If that happens, like it's out of my control. I think you do need balance. Like if I look at my squad balance here, if Mamazulis goes down, I will have Watson who can hopefully fill in there. If a mid goes down, I can move Hopgood up there and move Bird up into my edge. We've got like a million halves, got a million centers. And then look, I'm not, wing. Look, I probably do need a bit more wing. If I could add one more good wing fullback or mid edge player, I'd like to do that over one of these cows. And maybe that's where the money will go. Maybe Garrick will become a Tamale and I'll sacrifice a Purdue or a Paddy for a good dual position player or a forward.
Yeah. I like your rationale there, by the way. And I agree with everything you said there. You've got a bunch of top 100 finishes as well. So you know your stuff too, man. In terms of the sort of roster flexibility, I agree with you. It's not about cover. Cover is survival mode. And if you're focusing on cover, you've already lost. Right? Cover the last 5 weeks, yeah, for sure. But cover in these rounds shouldn't be the number one priority, except when it comes to pre-planned buys. That's when I'd look at it. What I love about this team, though, is you've built it in a way where if you want to make certain trades and you've got one guy you want to sell and one guy pops up that you have to buy, you can move your players around positionally in a way that will keep the roster intact, where you're not having to force certain buys and certain sells. So I think we saw last year, a lot of people got on, and a lot of people is me, Jack DeBellin during the origin period because we needed a middle. But the way your roster is set up, you're not going to have to force those kinds of moves. You can just go for the best player available because you have that bit of flexibility. So I do like that about your roster. If you are going to guess over the first few weeks what some of the trades you might make would be, it doesn't have to be exact players, but what kind of trades do you think might pop up for this team?
Mate, honestly, I can see a lot of these. Like, I don't want to think about it, but I can see Toya getting dropped for Billy Smith. I could see Seyfarth going back to the bench. We've seen that many times where he starts at edge, a lock, gets benched. I see Jack Cole getting dropped for Talongi. I see Duffy get dropped for Clifford. I could see, I think Sandon Smith is pretty safe. I think it's Stafford Tower. Bird could take the center spot, making Bird useless and Stafford Tower useless. I can see Purdue getting dropped for Zach Labert, and I can see Paddy getting dropped for Danny Levi. So it could be anything. The one I'm most worried about is I'm not too worried about any of them because I've gone in with that in my mind that could very much happen. And like, just like you said in your team reveal, like I play to try and get first. Like, I don't care about finishing 500th to 1,000. Like that's great. Like whatever. But like I want a shot to win it all. Still yet to do that. I think the 12th is my best finish. You've got the win. I would love for the casual athlete to have 2 champions next year. But look, there's a chance that all of these guys bust up at once. And if that happens, like, so be it. Like, I made the wrong calls, but look, it's good you touched on the buys because I specifically went out of my way to, given how risky this strategy is, I have Brimson on the buy week 1 as it stands. Week 1 buy is the easiest to deal with because you're fairly certain about the rest of your squad. I don't have any Melbourne Storm players, so I don't have anyone in the week 2 buy, and I don't have any Dragons players who are the week 3 buy. So I don't have to worry about a buy until Kalen Ponga goes in round 4. And I haven't gone for the popular picks in Marzu and Lucas. So in the first month of football, I only have Brimson and Ponga on a buy. So it gives me a bit of protection there from having to deal with injuries, droppings, and buys. So there's a bit of my logic there.
No, that makes sense. I didn't really notice that until you said it. So it's good to see. Last question for you here. How close do you think this is to the team that you'll trot out in the second half of round 1? So go through your Vegas players first, but then generally overall as well.
Yeah, through my Vegas players, look, I think I don't love the pick. Like, I agree with what you said in your team reveal that it's a very safe pick in terms of you're paying. Like, if he scores 70, I'm not that excited because I paid for a 65-point player. And if he scores 60, which is still a great score, I'm disappointed because he didn't give me value. So, look, I think I need, like I said earlier in the video, I need that stability of a guy that barely swings left or right to counter all my cows. So I think, I'm locking in. Cleary is a must-have. Metcalf, I think, is pretty much close to a must-have as possible. I think Tamale might force his way into my team for a guy like Garrick. But that is the only change I really see. Cole is locked in. Paddy, if I have a lot of excess funds left over, out of all the cashies, I think I move him because I think he has the least boom in the first few weeks, but he could boom later on. So that's my Vegas guys. And then in terms of the rest of the squad, honestly, fairly comfortable with most of it except the Garrick pick. And my edges are a bit, I'm very confident in Hopgood if he gets the 3 forward bench. Preston, I wouldn't mind doing an Angus or a Fafita, but I think Preston is pretty safe. I think I've specifically gone for guns that I think are very safe and reliable this year that, won't disappoint me if they stay on the field to offset the risk of my cows. So fairly certain, I would say my most contentious positions right now are wing, fullback, and edge.
Okay. Mate, you're in a good spot. There's a lot of pods here, so you're giving yourself a big chance. I know you well. I reckon you change this up a bunch before next week. I just think a bunch of things will happen. You'll be like, you know what, actually, I'm off Hopgood, I'm on Preston, whatever it is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I do want to caveat that for everyone watching. These teams that we've both revealed are definitely a work in progress. But I like that you've stuck true to a lot of the guys that you hyped up early in the preseason. So Seyfarth's there. Would you say you're 100% certain Seyfarth stays in the team?
If he's named at edge, definitely, yeah.
Yep.
He would have to be. He'd have to be named on the bench for me to pull him out.
And then my last question, last one: who's your favorite player in your squad? Not logically, but which one do you like looking at the most and want to see play in round one?
Probably Jermaine Hopgood.
Yep.
I think he's one of the very few players, like I said, that can average 60 plus. Haven't seen him run out for para in a long time. New coach, new forward style, loves to offload, mobile forward. That's exciting. He hopefully comes out with a 70 plus performance week 1 against the Melbourne Storm, and they, Parramatta beat the winning streak of round 1. That's what I'm praying for.
Beauty, man. All right. Well, thanks for running through your team. Really appreciate it. It's a good side. We'll do another rerun on both our teams as well next week. So post Vegas with that final team list, we'll go through that. But cheers, Biz. Cheers, everyone, for joining. And make sure you check out all our other videos. We've got more team reveals coming. Teamless Tuesday, Fantasy Mountain up next. See you guys there.